I was never one for coloring books. They seemed so restrictive. All those lines telling me where the crayon can and cannot go. Is it crayon or crayon? I don't know. We'll have to figure that one out. Oh, and don't get me started on the whole color by numbers thing. What's that about? Even then, I had to break rules by drawing my own pictures. I had to write my own rule book. Over the years, breaking rules, or coloring outside the lines, has become my passion. My day is not successful unless I find a way to break at least one rule. Good day, my
That's
name is
genius stuff right there.
Smallest
Who wrote
David, and that quotation is from the introduction to a book, and it is from an individual that lots and lots of us know and love because he is the rule breaker. And the very first thing that caught my attention about Phil Boyer was the fact I read early on, and I don't know, Phil, we've known each other for approaching 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years. You had written one of your few blog posts or done something, and used the expression "breaking the rules." I said, "That's a guy I want to meet. That's a guy I want to interact with because." Welcome, Phil.
Thank you.
I guess my first question is that's a good segue into my first question because is it a rule? Is it a rule that entrepreneurs must break the rules, or is it a rule to be a successful entrepreneur you must break the rules?
You know, entrepreneurship is about breaking rules. I mean, if we look at what being an entrepreneur is, we're saying, no, we don't want to do the 9-to-5 thing. You know, that's breaking the rule because we're always, you know, you grew up, well, maybe not so much these days, but back when I grew up, you know, was you went to school, you went to college, and then you got a job, and, you know, you started a family, and everybody had your life planned out for you. You know, you had really no say. That this is what you did, and if you deviated from that, well, you know, you were kind of an outcast, right? So by saying, you know what, screw working for someone else, I have this idea that I want to pursue. That's breaking rules, and that idea itself probably breaks a rule. It probably does something that isn't already in existence, or it takes something that's already done a certain way and does it differently. Then something happens. Then we stop breaking rules. You know, once we get to that point and we start our business, we stop breaking rules because we start listening to everybody else's advice, so-called experts that say, okay, you have to do this or you have to do that. And that, you know, I fell into that trap myself. You know, I followed all the rules. I followed, you know, there was a time where I hung on everything Gary Vaynerchuk said, Seth Godin, all those guys, you know, and even before that, reading books, you know, and it's like, you know what? They're all full of crap. I was going to say a different word, but I'll save the cussing for my own show.
You use that word in your table of contents.
I do, yes. You know, and so, you know, it's, you know, and I mentioned this the other day on a hangout. You know, when I branded myself as the rule breaker, I kind of made a mistake because rules are important, but they have to be your rules. And what this book, Coloring Outside the Lines, is it basically walks you through creating your own rule book, right? You have to have a certain guidelines and rules to run your business, but they have to be yours. They can't be someone else's because, you know, successful people, they can tell you do X, Y, and Z. That X, Y, and Z worked for them, but that doesn't mean it's going to work for you. They have an entirely different destination that they're going to that's not the same as yours. It's kind of like, you know, you have to get on the right freeway so you can get to where you want to go. Following someone else's directions to where they're going isn't going to take you where you need to be. So
well, I want to.
That's my take on rules.
I want to get a commitment from you today for a future HOA, because as I was reading your book, the first person, the first author that came to my mind, and I'm going to put you in a class now with one of probably the most renowned, prolific of all business book authors, and that's Brian Tracy. My favorite Brian Tracy book is The 100 Absolutely Unbreakable Laws of Business Success. I keep it close at hand. I read it. He's got 100 laws. So one of these days I want to have an HOA with you, and I'm going to take the Brian Tracy side of the argument and present the law, the unbreakable law, and you'll take your side and say, hey, that's not true. Here's how it works. So we have some fun doing that in the future.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
But boy, I put you in the class with Brian Tracy. Wow. That's something phenomenal. Okay, what I would like to do, rather than necessarily go chapter by chapter, I want to put you through an exercise here. It's going to take about 5 to 10 minutes to do it.
All right.
And I don't think I'm going to catch you off guard with it, but what I'd like to do is take each one of your chapters, read the chapter heading, and then you give a 1-sentence, 2-sentence, top-line summary of that chapter. Is that a good exercise to do?
Sure, why not? Let's do it.
Okay, and you know what? We're going to start out part 1, passion. Now, let me break for a moment before I break it down to your 2 chapters there. That probably passion is the only rule that you don't break with entrepreneurship. Are you gonna? Would you agree with that statement?
You know, I don't know as though I'd call that a rule. I think passion, and I say this in the book, is the foundation for everything you do, whether it's in business. I think it should be your life. So you could call it a rule, and if so, then yeah, I would say that's when you don't break. You have to live your passion.
Okay. So, chapter 1, and I think you might have talked a little bit just now, but let's give me 1 or 2 sentences. Passion trumps all is your chapter heading.
Yeah, I mean, those 2 chapters kind of go hand in hand, and it basically relates to what I just said about passion. Passion does trump everything, no matter what your idea. You may have the best idea in the world, but if you're not the one to do it, then it's not going to work out for you, because it's not going to be what you do. So that I think, if we could break a few rules, that kind of sums up the first 2 chapters, because they do go hand in hand. The first chapter is really, really small. I think it's only, if I remember right, a couple paragraphs. It basically says what passion is and how I define passion, and that really is literally the foundation for everything you do in your life, and it is the foundation for the book.
I'm going to ask you to address another thing that you talk about in your introduction. You just alluded to it for a moment. You talk about your book wasn't 237 pages or 327 pages. It was 60-some pages.
Mm-hmm.
And had a very interesting statement, and I want you to emphasize that, because it's a very, very important entrepreneurial lesson.
Well, time is money. I do believe that. We have, time is a scarcity, and I read a lot of books. I mean, in the book, I talk about my routines. I read both. I start my day by reading, and I end my day by reading. And excluding novels, business books, business books don't need to be 300, 400, 500 pages long. They really don't. We need to, my philosophy is this: if I can say what I need to say in 10 pages, then that's a book, right? You know, in this particular case, you know, I think Amazon did it at 79 pages. I think in a word processor, it's something like 65 or something like that. I don't remember. You know, so you know, I think we need to think about what it is we're trying to say and say it, and not, we don't need all this, we don't need to pussyfoot around the subject. We just need to get to the point. You know, I think a lot of HOAs are like that. I've watched a lot of HOAs that are an hour long that can be 20 minutes, honestly.
Oh,
You know?
oh my God! I bet. Oh, now you got me self-conscious. Now what am but to that point though, and you know, as long as you are bringing value, as long as you are creating value, as long as there's a good takeaway from what it is that you're doing, time doesn't matter. Time doesn't matter. You know, one of the I teach exercise classes, and the very first question that people say to me when after the class and I go down and, you know, shower and get ready, first question: how many people were in your class? And it's the dumbest first question anybody can ask, because my answer is standard. It's not about how many folks were in the class. It's the quality of the experience for the folks who came to class. That's my only concern. I don't care if there's 1, 2, 10, 20 people there. It's how many folks can I create a quality experience. And I think you're saying the same thing. Why take you know, 10 times as many pages as you need? To that point, I maybe shouldn't say this, but I'm going to break a rule. The last business book that I read was a book called Launch from Jeff Walker, who's supposed to be the king, the master of launches, of product launches, and he's got a lot of great information in this book. However, the 188 pages of the book could have been 67 pages. They really could have been, because there was a lot of, and probably his publisher said to him, well, we need this, and we need this many pages, and this is what you have to do. Is that something that happens in the real world? Because the only book I published, I did it myself, so I never interacted with a publisher other than myself.
I guarantee you, if I wanted to go this route, if I wanted to get this book published by a publisher, it wouldn't happen because it's too short. You know, you know, there are rules in publishing. You have to have, you know, a novel has to be X amount of words. You know, a business book has to be, you know, X amount of words or pages or whatever. And, you know, I think that's nonsense. Back in the day, you know, my wife's an author too, and she was doing this, I forget what it was called now, and I'm like, she wrote this short story, and it, like, the ending, she like hurried up and like ended it real quick, and I'm like, why'd you do that? It was going so well, and then all of a sudden it was like the second season of Jericho, you know? It was like, what the hell just happened? It was just done. And she's like, well, you know, it says that it's supposed to be this so many words. I'm like, well, who cares? You just ruined a good story, and you didn't follow what your passion was because some rule, somebody somewhere said it has to be this many words or pages. And so she ended up redoing it and, you know, fixing the end, and it was a great short story. And so that's, you know, not the reason, but one of the reasons why I'm not a fan of publishers and record labels and everything, because they need formulas in order to succeed. And we're seeing the same crap day after day being released, even in movies. I mean, how many superhero freaking movies do we need to see, honestly? But it's a formula that they found to work. You know, I don't know. I think we're creating this society of certain expectations that actually dumb people down versus empowering them and lifting them up and giving them something quality. So my thing, we talked a little bit in the green room about, you know, the fact that I don't post a lot and that really the only thing I do is a weekly show. And even then, I'm doing seasons. My show just came back a couple weeks ago, and I took 3 months off from my show. So even then, during those 3 weeks, I didn't really create any content, you know, except for a post here and there. on G+. Feel like I'm gotten way off track.
No, because I think you are sharing some really important lessons about marketing and how does the entrepreneur really market themselves, because marketing is the greatest opportunity in the world to break rules.
Right.
And the more conventional you are in your marketing, the more your message is going to get lost. You've got to do something where people remember the message and what it is. And no, not. I think you're sharing some really important lessons that entrepreneurs must grasp. I've seen a lot of it, and you brought up another point that in the HOAs, that a lot of HOAs that are out there right now. We talked about how big a year 2014 was going to be in Google Plus with HOAs, and I don't think a lot of it is shaking out as we thought it was going to shake out. And I think it brings us to another point that you and I have shared, and I'd like you to talk about it publicly now, that maybe the book, your current book, is the beginning of you creating a new business model for yourself. And if you'd like to talk about that, because once again, it's an important marketing lesson to be learned.
Again, following passion is really something you have to do. And I've been a consultant for a lot of years, and I think that course, that part of my passion has run its course, and it really no longer interests me, really. I'd like to phrase that a different way. Well, let me keep going. So what I'm doing with my personal brand, my Phil Bowyer brand, is it's going to be more product based than consultant based, and I'm going to turn my consultancy and my what I did for clients. I'm going to start a new venture actually with my wife, and we're going to be doing something else. And so that's where my one-on-one, my consultancy has led me. It's led me into a whole different phase. So it's not necessarily that I'm cutting being a consultant out of the equation entirely. It's going to take on a whole new life, a whole new form. So and we're going to be very selective on who we do business with, and it's going to be a whole different ball game. So
I am really buying into what you're talking about, because I think that's another area where you and I are really on the same page. I've been very fortunate in my career as a small business owner to be able to do what I wanted to do when I wanted to do it, and that to me was more important than anything else. When you do client work, the client drives your time. They own that's the nature of the business. They own your time. I started 2000 with 3 consulting contracts, 2 very lucrative contracts that I lost 18 months later, not because of anything that I did wrong, because the company had to cut back. Big companies had to cut back the amount of money they spent, and the first thing to go were consultants, because I was perceived as a consultant. Well, I had to change my I had to change my business model. I was forced to, because there wasn't a demand for consultants in 2003. The demands were somewhere else, and that's part of being an entrepreneur, is understanding that. I'm really excited about the fact that you're going to take this product, as I call it, productivization, and expand upon it. Are you at liberty to talk about some of the things that you want to do or are working on, and we're going to go with it?
It's actually going to be 2 businesses. One of them I'm going to keep close to my chest for now, because it's not fully formed. The other project that I've been working on a little bit longer, For now, it's codenamed Project X, and it's going to have to do with artists and helping artists make money. And I had an art-based business called Fibble. I've kind of put that on the back burner. We're going to kind of relaunch that with a different name and a different approach. And it's really, I've got some artists on board. My buddy Mike in Sweden is going to be part of this, he's the lead singer of a rock band in Sweden. So we're going to approach this from a different angle than what I did before. So that's part of what I'm moving into. I will say this, that I'm moving to more of a creative role, a creative type of thing that I'm going to be doing versus a strict marketing. And I'll still be breaking rules. Breaking rules is still a huge part of this, of what I'm going to be doing. And I will give you a hint: if you keep an eye on my wife, Kate Bowyer, the stuff that she's going to be releasing here in the next month or so, that's really going to be what we're going to be doing for clients. So there's your little tease right there.
Okay, we're going to be on the lookout. What a great marketer you are, planting the seed. Okay, part 2, the brutal truth. What would you say you do here? Chapter 3, who are you? Really? Who the hell are you? And chapter 4, oh God, it hurts.
Okay, so chapter 3, who are you? It's diving into who you are. We don't like to think of who we are, really. It's about who the business is and who our target audience is. It's always this external stuff. It's never internal. And I believe once I understood who I was and how I needed to talk to people, because I am not for everybody. My personality isn't for everybody. I can turn a lot of people off because I'm very direct, I'm very to the point, and sometimes people take that as the wrong way. So once I understood that, I was able then to craft my communication and craft what I did around that so it was more personable and could be received a lot better. And it allowed me to see my strengths and weaknesses. So that's basically what chapter 3 is. Chapter 4 is finding the pain point in your idea. In business, we talk about pain points, solving the problem. What's the problem we're trying to solve? Does this idea actually solve that pain point? And is that pain point something that is your passion? Does that align with your passion? Or is it just a good idea that somebody somewhere should do?
When you say pain point, part of what we have to do as, quote, consultants, if that's the label, is find that pain point. And unfortunately, I've run into more and more folks that have solutions to pain points when they don't know what the pain points are. And what a waste of time that is, a waste of their time, a waste of my time listening to them. And we forget, we don't find the pain points till we ask the questions, period. Mm-hmm. And you did a great job and have done a great job in asking the questions of yourself. Mm-hmm. and shifting your business model, because that's the right thing to do. Number one, it's the right thing for Phil to do, and at the same time, you can pursue it with all that passion that you do, that makes it real for you. Okay, number 3, the brutal truth. How bad do you want it? Chapter 5, get out from under the covers. Chapter 6, making the lizard brain your bitch. Oh my goodness. Are you breaking a rule there by some of the words you're using? And chapter 7, quit stalling and make it happen.
Yeah, real quick before I get into this section, the book does contain, some bad language.
Explicit words.
Could call it. Right. I mean, we've got, quite a few cuss words in there. And again, that goes back to what I was saying a second ago, is that's who I am. If you watch my show, I'll swear on my show. I try not to do it on other people's HOAs, but that's just me. I grew up in a fire station, and that was part of the game. We swore, and I've got a potty mouth for sure. But for me, when I'm watching a movie and they censor it and they put these, like when you stub your toe, you're not going to say darn. You're going to use some words that explain the situation that you're in, right?
What words do you use when you stub your toe, Phil?
I don't think we won't get into that, but it's in this book. I wanted it to be raw. I wanted it to be real, and I wanted it to also get an insight to who I am too. That this book is also my journey in a way. I didn't quite do it this way that I put it in the book. This book is more of a accumulation of my last, whatever it is, 20, 30 years as an entrepreneur, business owner. But I'm gonna cuss. That's just me, and I try to do it in a way that didn't come out offensive, but it could offend some people. Some people are offended by bad words. I look at words as they have a meaning and they have a place, and let's use them when it's appropriate. And that's kind of what I've done here. So I just wanted to say that about language, because I think we tend to get focused on, like, somebody a few months back, I used a word in one of my posts, and this guy comes back, well, with language like that, you're not going to get anywhere. I'm like, really? Okay, I think I'm doing pretty well for myself, and nobody else seems to be offensive. And honestly, and I think I mentioned this to you in the green room, you have to get the kind of people and the kind of audience that you want to do business. You want to do business with people that are going to fight you with every step, that your personalities aren't going to mesh. So that's kind of my take on the whole language thing.
Well, the other thing, and then we'll get back to the questions here, but the other thing is you don't use the words that you use are Phil. They're your personality. It's not that you use the words to try to create some big effect. It's who you are and what you are. So that's a good thing.
Yep. Definitely.
Okay. So get out from
part 3. Part 3 is about as entrepreneurs, we all go through quite often, actually, these different phases of self-doubt. We let our lizard brain control us and do things, and we find excuses to not do things. So this section is about moving past that and setting yourself up to succeed. It's understanding that this is going to happen, and that you need to figure out a way to move past that, to again set yourself up to succeed, so you're not letting that lizard brain keep you in front of the TV or whatever, that you're actually working on your passion and doing your passion. Because sometimes having that passion isn't enough. For some people it is. For the lizard brain is a powerful thing, and especially in women tend to have bigger lizard brains, and the bigger it is, the stronger it is. And so emotions can run high, and they're very controlling. And being emotional and making decisions, they don't really go well together. So you need to understand how to separate the two and move yourself forward. So that's what that section's about.
Vivek just made a comment. He has a business book which he is reading entitled "Get Off Your Ass." It is written by Brad Burtons. So bad language is relative. Good point. We know, get off your ass. That's a good lesson for entrepreneurs. Get off your ass. Do it. Make it happen. Make
Definitely.
it happen. The words and the vocabulary. It's the beautiful way that we communicate with the rest of the world. Okay, the S word, getting shit done. Busy versus productive, great thing I want you to focus on. You can't do it alone. Another great thing, it's about, well, a C word, and how the hell do I do that again?
The C
That's
word. The C word is not a word I tend to use. So
no, the
we
C
won't talk
word is
about that. Oh,
collaborative.
okay. Okay.
It's the entrepreneurial. I'm sorry to. I should have been more clear in my use of words. No, my major theme is small business collaboration.
Yeah, so basically, I call this getting shit done because, again, language is important, and I use that phrase because I want people to wake up and understand that it is about getting stuff done every day, whether it's even if you just move an inch every day, that's still moving you closer to your destination. Hopefully it's more than an inch, but we all have bad days. You know, to be perfectly honest, last week sucked for me. I didn't move as much as I wanted to. But we all have weeks like that. But it's important to move past that, and it's important to understand what you need to do to get past that. Busy versus productive. How's it going? Oh, I'm busy. I'm busy. I'm busier than a one-arm paper hanger. And it's like, okay, what exactly are you doing that you're so busy? Because you shouldn't be that busy, right? Being productive doesn't mean you need to work 18 hours a day. It means you need to be working on the things that actually matter and move you forward. So in conjunction with that, I talk about you can't do it alone. You got to get a good team around you and a good people that can help you and take some of that burden off. And I did a show last night about virtual assistants and unloading some of the stuff onto them, stuff that you don't have to do, give to somebody else, right? That's all that busy work, all that busy stuff that you don't need to do, give it to someone else.
Give us an example of that.
Of busy work?
No. Well, work that you could pass on to a virtual. Well, because over the years, and I've been as guilty of it as the other person, entrepreneurs, so that we cut our costs, we do the work ourselves. Well, doing the work ourselves, A, doesn't necessarily mean that we're productive, and B, more often than not, it's not as efficient as giving it to somebody else to do. And that's a hard lesson for entrepreneurs to grasp.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, and that's why, in part 2 I talk about who you are, because you have to identify where your strengths and weaknesses are, so you're not putting energy and time into something that you're weak in. And having a weakness isn't something bad either. It's actually, we all have it. We're all really good at something or a few things. And that's where we need to put our focus on. We need to put our focus on what we need to do that only we can do for our business. That's what we need to do. Everything else should be delegated to someone else. So,
and to that point, one thing that I've done is I only had one period of my life, and it was for a year, that I had employees. And it was an extremely difficult thing for me to have an employee. So I had them because there was no way with what the business objective was, there was no way that I could do it myself. I had to have employees. But in having to have employees and managing those folks, managing their lives, I was taking time away from what it was what my passion was, and what I did best, and how I could be most productive. So I made a decision, 1979, that whatever I did for the rest of my life, I was going to do it for myself, and where I could find people to do it more efficiently than I could, I would pass it on to them. I would pass it on to the virtual assistant, as you say. But also, and I'd like to have now that you brought it up, I'd like to have your opinion. I will never ask anybody to do something that I haven't tried to do myself, so I could try to understand what task is all about. What you're feeling about that? And it's a little off target here, but talk about virtual.
I believe that you should have an understanding of every part of your business. That doesn't mean you need to be an expert in it, but you don't need to be an accountant, but you need to understand how the books are done. You need to understand what goes into that and that kind of thing, right? I hate math. So I don't do the books. I'm not good at it. So somebody else handles that. So, but at the same time, I understand what goes into that. And I have done the books before, just I've bootstrapped all my businesses. So money isn't something that I've always had to be able to delegate, though, I learned the lesson late in life that it does take a team, and you do limit yourself when you fly solo a lot of the time. But yeah, I do think you need to have an understanding. You don't have to actually go in and edit the video, but you should definitely understand what editing a video means and what it takes to do that, so you actually can make good business decisions. You don't want to be paying some guy $300 to edit your video when it should only cost you $50, right? So having an understanding of what tasks need to be done, yeah, that's going to help you make good decisions and when you delegate.
Okay, part 5 in the final chapter of the book, Moving the Needle. Chapter 11, failure that fails. Failing failure that fails. And chapter 12, are you successful? Would you know it if you were? Great question.
We hear a lot about success and failure. These are two topics that a lot of people like to talk about in depth, and my opinion is a lot of the stuff floating around on both these topics are junk, because they fill people's heads with a bunch of nonsense. They fill people's heads with, you have to be like Richard Branson or whoever in order to be successful. That's what success is. In failure, we need to fail fast and fail hard, and failure's a good thing, and all this other stuff. And failure is never a good thing. Failure means you didn't meet your objective. Failure means you screwed up somewhere along the way. It's not a good thing. So, in the case of failure, we need to be looking at failure not as a positive thing, but as a negative thing, so we give it the attention that it deserves. So we actually sit down and react to that failure in a positive way, versus saying, well, I failed, it's not a big deal, let's just move on. We have to stop and give it the attention. We have to say, okay, what happened? What actually happened? How could we have done this differently? Right? Maybe it was something that's unavoidable. Maybe this is a flaw in the business model. Maybe this idea now, I've talked about my grocery delivery company in the past. That was a great idea that just didn't work. It's not something that, unless you're a grocery store, delivering groceries is not a viable business, right? So that's one of those failures that's like the blue screen of death. That's it. There is no more. There's nothing positive about that, because in the case of me, I spent a year developing this company that ultimately failed. There's no way that you can look at that as a positive except to say, never going to do that again, or you can learn to ask yourself better questions along the way. You could still turn that into a learning process, but we got to stop looking at failure as something to A, strive for, and B, something that's positive. But at the same time, we have to understand that it's going to happen. We're going to hit roadblocks. That's going to happen, and we need to learn how to deal with that in a positive way. Success is something that, again, is relative, and I wanted to make sure that that I close the book out with this, because success isn't something, it's something personal. It's just like your passion. It's something personal to you, and your success should be defined only by you, not by anybody else, only by you. And maybe that is how many zeros are in your bank account. Whatever. I'm not here to judge. I'm just saying you need to understand what your success is. My definition of success, of a successful business in general terms, is when you and your clients and the people that you serve are incredibly happy. To me, that's what success is. Now, what happiness and how you define that happiness, that's where the details are, and that's where the devil is. But to me, that's what success is. It's not about, well, Richard Branson's got, I don't know how many businesses that guy has these.
1,242 at last count.
There's no doubt he's successful, but I'm a big fan of Derek Sivers, who ran CD Baby and sold it. His approach of success is a lot different than many. Yeah, he sold that thing for, I want to say, $10 million or something like that, but it wasn't about the money. It was about that he created a company that served musicians in a way that they hadn't been served before. His idea of success wasn't charging a customer an extra $50 to make a change. It was, send me a frickin' pizza. Here's a number, call the pizza place that we get our pizza from, and have them send over a pizza. That's how they viewed success, is treating their customers a certain way.
You just validated for me, and thank you for some of my thoughts. I hate the use of the word failure when talking about entrepreneurship and small business, because I think failure comes in not trying. I think that, and back to your definition of successful, we may not be as successful as we want to be based upon our measurement of what it is to be successful, but that doesn't mean that we have failed because we're not as successful. And you brought it out. Maybe you read the market wrong. Maybe your marketing message wasn't clear. Maybe you weren't clear what you were trying to do, and those are all things. So I think the failure comes in not trying, and we might not be as successful as we want to be, and we measure success. So thank you for bringing that up. I want to kind of start to come to an end with our discussion, and I wanted to ask some questions in the beginning of our discussion. And I forgot to, but I think they're very appropriate as we've listened to you talk so far. So my first question was going to be, why did you write the book? Definition of why, and closely related to that, when did you decide that you wanted to do it? And then once you decided that you wanted to do it, did you set a time frame for yourself to conclude, to bring it to market, to the marketplace, and talk a little bit about that process?
Why I wrote the book, I wrote the book for myself, because I thought I had all these ideas and all these experiences, all this stuff that I wanted to put in a coherent format, a format that could be read, that could be used as building a rule book. I had this thing called the Indiepreneur Manifesto that I created last year, and it was about the same time I started thinking about this book. And actually, the Indiepreneur Manifesto is going to end up being something else, and the Indiepreneur Manifesto I kind of expanded on and created this book. So it was kind of a couple of things that came out, or came together to create this book. I also wrote it for my audience. I wrote it for the people that are sick of spinning their wheels, that are tired of listening to the same old out there, watching those hour-and-a-half long HOAs that tell them how to SEO their site to get more traffic. I wrote it for them so they can actually get down and stop being busy by SEOing their site and get productive by working on things that actually matter. So I wrote it for those people as well, that want to actually take control, write their own rule book, and kick some ass. The second part of your question, as far as timelines and the journey of the book, because when I started to write this book, my goal wasn't to pivot and create products off of my brand. It was to augment what I was doing, which was consulting and working with people. So honestly, clients came first, the book came second. So the book was, I wrote the book at, midnight, 1 a.m. when I didn't have clients. I wasn't working with clients. I'm a night owl, so I do a lot of that type of work late at night. So it wasn't until the last 2 months before I released the book that I really started getting serious about the timeline and getting it out there, because I saw really, the abundance of this, I'm going to call it nonsense, that I see out there in my G Plus stream was really starting to get in abundance, and I really saw how people were taking hold of it, and I'm like, I got to get this book out there. This book really needs to be in the hands of people, and I know that sounds a little conceited, and I don't mean it that way, but I want people to understand that it's not about following checklists. It's not about following other people's routes to where they got. It's about creating their own. So that's when I ramped up my, I started to focus more on the book, and that's when my pivot started happening, and I put more emphasis on this because that can help more people than the one-on-one thing.
You made another really, really interesting point in your introduction, and I identified with it very, very closely that you conceptually you design the book to be a workbook, and in fact you tell folks to get a binder, of a notebook binder, so that you can take notes and write questions. And you said this is something you could probably read the 67 pages in a couple hours, but you're going to take more than a couple hours to read the book, because I also want you to write down thoughts and use it as a workbook. I specifically designed a book as a workbook, and I created 749 questions, didn't give one answer, but designed it as a workbook so the entrepreneur could take notes and say, wow, I never thought about that question. It's an important thing, and I need to call my accountant, I need to call Philip, I need to call whomever to get a good answer and help me develop a strategy for that particular question. So I love that part of your book when or the introduction, when you say, get a notebook, take notes, and when I ask a question, answer the question. You take your time to answer that question. Great concept. Right,
because you know what? The thing is, again, we need to look inside for those answers, not outside for those answers. I can tell you how I do it, but that doesn't mean that's going to work for you.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
In the book, I talk about routines, and I talk about what my routine is. That routine works for me. That's a routine that I've developed, and I still tweak. I just started journaling, last week. I think it was. But I also say, I also pick out famous artists that we've all heard of and what their routine was, and they're all different. So you've got to find your own answer to this stuff. You're not going to find it in a G Plus post. You're not going to find it in a book. Anytime I see a headline, and it's funny because Ken and I on Thursday the thing is five things you must do to be successful or something like that. And every time I see headlines like that, I cringe, and I just I get angry. So tomorrow's show is going to be really fun. I can't wait for that. But
are you and Ken going to fight during that show?
No, we won't fight, but we're gonna pick apart that article. That's
By the way, I love the show. I have participated in the show. Why don't you share the information where people can actually view the show?
It's the Micro Minute Show with Ken Menessy and myself, and each week we go through like Entrepreneur Magazine or Inc. Magazine or any of those, and Ken finds an article, and then we kind of talk about it and talk about what that means. And honestly, I stopped reading those magazines a long time ago because I feel a lot of it in there is junk. Not all of it. I'm actually, Ken's bringing me some of these articles, and I'm actually quite surprised on some of the things that are in there that are actually relevant and decent. But still, like a lot of the stuff in there isn't my philosophy. It's what I like to say. It's old school, and it's stuff that used to work, but I don't think we're in that world anymore. So I'm really enjoying taking these articles and picking them apart and dissecting them and going through that. So
I'm going to have to talk to Ken about this, because I don't know. I'm sure he's noticed, and in fact, a lot of his themes are articles that he will take out and just create discussions around them. But the last edition of Entrepreneur Magazine, every single day in the Google stream, there is at least one or two, and Entrepreneur Magazine is doing it. And I find that very interesting, and I wonder, every time I see one, I wonder if Ken drove the decision for Entrepreneur Magazine to really promote their own magazine. But every single day there's one or two posts about a story in the magazine. So thank you, Phil, as always. It's always an enjoyable discussion that I have with you. This is probably the third HOA I think that maybe we've done. You were one of the original featured entrepreneurs, one of the 75 featured entrepreneurs that I started with a couple years ago. And I smile as I listen to you talk, because, well, I listen to you to see how much of what you say validates what I am doing. And when I can hear that, it brings such joy to me to listen, because it is about it. And you did a great thing by you breaking the rules, taking that as your mantra. It's a great thing, because entrepreneurs must break the rules if they're going to make an impact. Because if you're like everybody else, you'll get buried, and somebody else will get the business, and you won't get the business for whatever the reason. So the mindset of breaking the rules is a great theme. Thank you for your book. When can we expect another book from Phil?
My next book is actually going to be titled The Permission Principle, and I haven't started writing it yet. I've got notes and stuff down with it, but probably not for a little bit yet. I'm going to be launching some products here in the first part of 2015, as well as the audio book for Coloring Outside the Lines, and the physical book should be out here at the end of December. I'm trying for Christmas, but we'll see.
Talk about what. So you're going to read. You're going to read the as an audio book. You're going to read the book.
Nope.
Oh, are you at liberty to say how it's going to be presented or not?
I think I talked about this last time I was on your show. Maybe that was in the green room, but I'm going to create this. The audiobook is going to be more of an experience. I'm not going to read it. And this is my personal opinion. I know that you've got a different view on this, but I don't like listening to somebody read me a book. That puts me to sleep. That's just not my thing. And again, I don't want to do something that I don't personally like. I don't like to read 500-page books, so I'll probably never write one. Never say never, but if it needs 500 pages, then yeah. But so I'm gonna try a little different approach with this audiobook, and it's going to be presented more as, and I hesitate to use this word, but more of a podcast feel to it. We're going to turn it into more of a show-based type of thing versus reading it. It'll still be the same content. There won't be anything new in it. So, but we're just going to present the content in a different way than the typical audiobook does.
I'm real excited to see it, because I've already made a public announcement myself that in the first 100 days of 2015, sometime in those 100 days, hopefully in the early part rather than the latter part, I'm going to be doing a video ebook where instead of actually writing, and I don't enjoy writing, but I love to do videos. I love to do HOAs. I love that. So why? It's my passion. So why not use that as my means of communication? So it's going to be a video ebook, and I'm putting all the pieces together, and I hope to have you as a part of my video ebook, and we will talk about that in the future. So thank you for taking your time today. It's been a great discussion. A lot of takeaways from it. I want to wish you the best of luck, but I guess with you, as I listen, it's not how many million of these books you sell, it's how many people can react to it and take some kind of action, either for themselves and say, wow, I need to do that, or to engage you and say, Phil, help me along my journey to make that happen. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you again for having me. It's a pleasure. And yeah, the book, I just want to make sure that anybody who reads it gets something from it, and that's really the goal. If it sells a million copies, great.
If they don't get something from it, share it with you. You want to hear that they agree with something, or you were off track, or whatever. That's part of what you're all about. That you want to get the feedback of the book itself.
Well, in fact, at the end of the book, I actually ask people to leave a review, not because I want a 5-star review. It's because I want that feedback. I want people to let me know, and I've gotten some really great feedback on the book so far from people that have read it, and that'll help me write the next one and do better with the next one and illustrate my points better, or whatever the case is. So it's about growth. I mean, if I need my message to get to people, I need to grow and understand.
Here's my commitment to you. I love the book. I will create a testimonial of the book, and I will post it in my streams, my various streams. I think that's as effective as anything else, and it's a great book, folks.
Thank you.
I guarantee you, I personally guarantee you, and Phil will stand behind me, that you will take away from this book at least one idea that will bring value to your life and move your life forward. And that's why Phil does. That's Phil and I do the things that we do. If you can take one thing away, I guess you say you want to piss somebody off once a day. No, you want to break one rule. You want to break a rule every day.
Sometimes that does mean I piss people off.
I use the P word. I got so taken up, Phil. I used the P word. Oh my goodness.
I'm a bad influence.
I hope my mom doesn't listen to this one. So thank you folks for taking time out of your schedules, and let us know. Put it in the event stream what you liked, what you didn't like, what the takeaway was, and as always, your time is very valuable, and Phil and I are honored that you took the time to listen and to watch what we had to share with you. My name is Small Biz David, and I will see you the next time, which may very well be the best time.
See ya.